This is TOEFL IBT speaking test, and this test evaluates your ability to communicate in English in an academic setting. It consists of 4 tasks. Task 1, express an opinion on a familiar topic. Extended listening, conversation between 2 students. Student 1, did you hear about the new printing policy the university's putting in place next month? Student 2, yeah, I saw the announcement yesterday. Honestly, I think it's a terrible idea. Student 1, really? They said it's to reduce costs and help the environment. Student 2, I get that, but limiting students to only 100 free pages for an entire semester isn't realistic. I print lecture slides for all my classes so I can write notes on them. That alone adds up to way more than 100 pages. And some professors still hand out assignments in hard copy and expect printed submissions. Student 1, that's true. Not every class is fully digital yet. Student 2, exactly. Plus, they said we'll have to pay for extra pages. I mean, even if it's a small fee, it adds up, especially for students who are already on tight budgets. They should be supporting students, not charging them for basic academic resources. Student 1, so you think they should cut spending somewhere else? Student 2, definitely. Maybe reduce unnecessary upgrades or events instead. Cutting back on printing just punishes students who actually use the resources for learning. Not to mention, not everyone finds digital reading effective. Some of us really need printed material to study better. Extended lecture, professor speaking. Professor, let me give you an example that really illustrates this idea of anchoring. In one experiment, researchers brought participants into a room and showed them a spinning wheel labeled with random numbers from 0 to 100. The participants were told the wheel spin was unrelated to the actual task, just a warm-up. But after spinning the wheel, they were asked to estimate the population of a foreign city they'd never heard of. Here's the interesting part. Those who saw a high number on the wheel, like 85 or 90, guessed that the city's population was much higher than those who spun a low number, like 10 or 20. Even though they knew the wheel was random, the number still influenced their thinking. That random number served as an anchor, something they unconsciously adjusted from, even though it wasn't connected to the task at all. Another example is in shopping. If a store lists a sweater as originally $150, now $75, people often perceive it as a great deal, even if the sweater is only worth $50. That original price acts as an anchor and makes the discount seem more attractive, even if the reduced price isn't truly fair. This kind of bias influences consumer behavior all the time. Task 4. Integrated, academic lecture, listening only, extended, headphone lecture excerpt. Professor speaking. Professor, today, we're going to examine how soil erosion contributes to environmental degradation and look more closely at some common causes. Soil erosion occurs when the upper layer of soil, called topsoil, is worn away by natural forces like wind and water. This top layer is rich in nutrients and essential for growing plants. When it's lost, the land becomes less productive, sometimes permanently. One major cause is deforestation. Trees and plants hold soil in place with their roots. When forests are cleared, whether for agriculture, construction, or logging, the protective plant cover disappears. Without it, rainwater can hit the ground directly, loosening and washing away the soil. This runoff not only removes fertile soil but can also pollute nearby rivers and lakes with sediment. Another common cause is overgrazing. In areas where large numbers of livestock graze continuously, the grasses and plants are eaten faster than they can grow back. As a result, the ground is left bare. And with no vegetation to anchor the soil, it becomes vulnerable to erosion, especially during windy conditions or heavy rains. Overgrazed land often turns into dry, barren landscapes where nothing can grow, leading to desertification over time. Both of these examples, deforestation and overgrazing, not only reduce the land's ability to support agriculture, but also contribute to climate change by releasing stored carbon from plants and soil into the atmosphere.
I prefer to take my time and carefully consider all options when making important decisions. Rushing often leads to overlooking important details or potential consequences, which can cause problems later. For instance, when I had to choose my college major, I didn't decide immediately. Instead, I spent several months researching different fields, attending informational sessions, and talking to professors and students who were already studying those subjects. This careful process helped me understand what each major involved and which one aligned best with my interests and strengths. Moreover, taking time allows me to weigh the pros and cons of each choice. For example, if I were deciding whether to accept a job offer, I would consider factors like salary, work environment, career growth, and location before making a final decision. This way, I can avoid making a choice based only on initial excitement or pressure. Overall, I believe that carefully considering all options leads to better decisions and greater satisfaction in the long run. It reduces the chance of regret and helps me feel confident that I made the right choice. The student expresses a negative opinion about the university's new printing policy. She thinks the policy, which limits free printing to 100 pages per semester, is unfair and impractical for students. She explains that she prints all her lecture slides and readings because it helps her take better notes and study more effectively. For her, 100 pages are simply not enough to cover an entire semester's coursework. Additionally, she points out that some professors still require hard copy assignments or handouts, which means students must print even more. The student is also concerned about the extra fees students will have to pay if they exceed the limit. She believes this additional cost could be a financial burden, especially for students who are already struggling with tuition and other expenses. She argues that the university should look for other ways to reduce expenses rather than limiting students' access to necessary academic resources. Overall, the student feels the policy will negatively affect students' ability to learn and succeed. She believes the administration should prioritize supporting students rather than making it harder for them by restricting printing. In her view, the new printing limit and fees are unfair and will cause more problems than benefits. Anchoring bias is a cognitive bias where people rely too much on the first piece of information they receive, called the anchor, when making decisions or judgments. Even if the anchor is irrelevant or random, it still influences how people think and estimate things. The professor's example shows this with a study where participants spun a wheel with random numbers and then guessed the population of a city. People who saw higher numbers on the wheel gave much higher estimates, while those who saw lower numbers gave lower estimates. This happened even though the numbers on the wheel had nothing to do with the city's population. The random number acted as an anchor that influenced their judgment. The professor also mentioned how stores use anchoring by showing a high original price next to a discounted price. This makes people think they are getting a good deal because the original price anchors their perception of value, even if the discount price isn't actually low. The professor explains that soil erosion occurs when the top layer of soil, called topsoil, is worn away by natural forces like wind or water. She discusses two main causes of soil erosion. The first cause is deforestation. When trees are cut down or removed, their roots no longer hold the soil firmly in place. Without these roots, heavy rain can easily wash the soil away. This not only reduces the fertility of the land, making it harder to grow crops, but it also causes environmental problems such as sedimentation in rivers and loss of natural habitats. The second cause the professor mentions is overgrazing by livestock. When too many animals graze on the same grassland area, the vegetation can't recover quickly enough. This leaves large patches of exposed soil. Without plants to protect it, the soil becomes vulnerable to being blown away by wind or washed away by rain. Over time, this process can turn productive land into barren, dry areas that are unable to support plant life, a process known as desertification. Both deforestation and overgrazing significantly reduce the land's ability to support agriculture and natural ecosystems. The professor also notes that these problems contribute to broader environmental issues like climate change because they release carbon stored in plants and soil.